Hello and welcome. Today we dive into one of the most haunting unsolved murders in American history, the tragic 1947 killing of Elizabeth Short, forever remembered as the Black Dahlia. In this video, we'll retrace the events, the investigation, and the enduring mystery that still chills the world to this day. Los Angeles in 1947 was a city brimming with the vibrant energy of post-World War II America, a burgeoning hub of glamour, ambition, and rapid expansion. This period witnessed a significant influx of returning servicemen and individuals seeking new opportunities, contributing to a dynamic yet often volatile social landscape. Beneath the veneer of Hollywood's allure, however, the city harbored a darker underbelly, marked by social tensions and rising crime concerns. Many newcomers, particularly young women, arrived with dreams of achieving the American dream of success and happiness in the film industry, yet often encountered a harsh reality where the pursuit of fame could lead to precarious and vulnerable existences. This contrast between the glittering promise and the underlying dangers would become a central theme in the city's lore. It was against this backdrop that, just before 11 a.m., on January 15, 1947, a local housewife, Betty Bersinger, made a horrifying discovery in a vacant lot on Norton Avenue in the Leimert Park neighborhood. She initially mistook the site for a discarded mannequin due to its unnatural, posed position and the body's pallid, bloodless appearance. The reality was far more gruesome: the mutilated body of a young woman. This initial misidentification of the body as a mannequin is a critical detail, suggesting a deliberate and meticulous staging by the perpetrator. The body was not merely discarded but carefully arranged, almost as a perverse artistic statement, indicating a killer who sought to create a specific, shocking visual impact rather than simply disposing of evidence. This calculated presentation speaks to a desire for notoriety and a twisted form of communication, elevating the crime beyond a simple act of violence to a psychological spectacle. The victim was soon identified as Elizabeth Short, and her murder, quickly sensationalized by the press as the Black Dahlia case, would embed itself deeply into American crime history. This crime became infamous not only for its unparalleled brutality, but also for the baffling lack of leads and the persistent failure of law enforcement to identify the killer. The Black Dahlia murder remains one of the most famous unsolved cases in U.S. history and one of the oldest cold cases in Los Angeles County, widely recognized as one of the first major crimes in post-war America to capture national attention. Its enduring mystery continues to fuel public fascination and speculation decades later, reflecting a deep-seated intrigue with Hollywood's dark underbelly and the unresolved questions of justice. Elizabeth Short was born in Medford, Massachusetts, in 1925. Her early life was marked by family disruption. Her parents separated when she was 6, and her father moved to California, taking one of her 5 siblings with him. Her mother, Phoebe Short, faced considerable challenges raising 4 children alone. At the age of 17, in 1942, Elizabeth left home to work as a waitress in Miami, Florida. She later moved to California to live with her father, but their relationship was strained, and she left his home after only a few weeks due to constant fighting. Short was widely believed to be an aspiring actress, drawn by the allure of Hollywood. She reportedly joined casting lines in hopes of securing acting roles, though she had no known acting credits or stable jobs in the film industry during her time in Los Angeles. This aspiration for stardom, common among young women flocking to Los Angeles, often masked a reality of struggle and vulnerability. Accounts of Elizabeth Short's personality present a complex picture, highlighting a duality that may have been a survival mechanism in a challenging environment. Friends and family remembered her as strikingly beautiful with a lovely personality, someone who liked to be admired and was unforgettable. However, other descriptions portray her as a naive drifter, greedy for attention, flirtatious with strangers, and duplicitous with partners. This apparent contradiction suggests that her outward charm and beauty were likely tools for navigating Hollywood's social scene and securing temporary support. Her duplicitous actions, such as lying about travel plans, and her transient lifestyle underscore a desperate struggle for economic and emotional stability. She was often emotionally and economically dependent on strangers. Her reported sadness and void could be rooted in early family trauma and the profound losses of her two fiancés, both soldiers killed in action during the war, which reportedly led her to seek solace in drinking and relationships with various men. She dated widely and was known to have associated with at least 50 men at the time of her death. She also had a prior police record, stemming from a 1943 arrest in Santa Barbara for underage drinking. This combination of vulnerability and a transient, often deceptive, lifestyle made her particularly susceptible to the dangers lurking beneath the city's glamorous facade. Short had moved back to Southern California in mid-1946. The last person confirmed to have seen Elizabeth Short alive was Robert Manley, a married salesman, who gave her a ride from San Diego to Los Angeles on January 9, 1947. Manley dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles at 6:30 p.m. Employees at the Biltmore Hotel later verified seeing Short making frantic phone calls from a bank of phones in what is now known as the rendezvous room. This detail suggests she was in distress or seeking urgent help just before her disappearance. It is believed a car picked her up from the Biltmore, but subsequent stops at the Crown Grill or the bar at the Cecil Hotel are disputed. After getting into that car, Elizabeth Short was never seen alive again. Short had told Manley she was traveling to Berkeley to stay with her sister, a detail that was later revealed to be untrue, illustrating her pattern of sometimes fabricating details about her life. The period between her last confirmed sighting on January 9 and the discovery of her body on January 15 is a critical investigative gap, often referred to as the missing week. The killer's subsequent actions, cleaning her body with gasoline to remove fingerprints and later sending her cleaned belongings to the press, indicate a high degree of meticulousness and forethought. This suggests that the perpetrator likely held Short captive during this time, deliberately erasing forensic traces from her body and personal items. This level of planning implies a sophisticated individual who understood investigative methods, even in their nascent stages, and potentially knew Short well enough to anticipate her movements or lure her into isolation, effectively creating a controlled environment for the crime. Medical examiners estimated her time of death to be approximately 10 hours before her body's discovery, placing it sometime during the evening of January 14 or the early morning hours of January 15, 1947. On the morning of January 15, 1947, just before 11 a.m., a local housewife named Betty Bersinger was walking with her child in the Lamert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles when she made the horrific discovery. The naked body of Elizabeth Short was found in a vacant lot on the west side of South Norton Avenue, positioned a few feet from the sidewalk. The body was posed in a disturbing manner, hands over her head, elbows bent at right angles, and legs spread apart. Bersinger initially believed she was looking at a mannequin, a perception attributed to the body's unnaturally white, pallid appearance, drained of blood, and its contorted, staged position. Elizabeth Short's body had been severed cleanly in half at the waist, with what was described as surgical precision. This bisection technique, known as a hemicorporectomy, was taught in the 1930s. A critical detail was the complete absence of blood at the scene, strongly indicating that Short had been killed elsewhere and her body meticulously cleaned before being deposited. This consistent observation of no blood at the scene is a crucial indicator that the murder and dismemberment occurred in a separate, private location. This implies the perpetrator had access to a secure environment for the crime and the means to transport and meticulously clean the body, even using gasoline to destroy fingerprints. This level of planning, precision, and cleanliness suggests a highly organized and experienced individual, possibly with medical knowledge or prior experience in disposing of bodies. This forethought significantly complicated the initial investigation by removing crucial forensic evidence from the primary discovery site, forcing investigators to rely on secondary clues and broader profiling. Her face was severely bruised and cut, with a grisly slash running from each side of her mouth to her ears, creating a grotesque effect known as the Glasgow smile. Internal organs had been removed, and portions of flesh were cut away from her thighs and breasts. Her intestines were neatly tucked beneath her buttocks. Autopsy revealed ligature marks on her wrists and ankles, indicating she had been restrained, and evidence of torture, including cigarette burns and lacerations. Fecal matter found in her stomach suggested she had been forced to ingest it before death. The official cause of death was determined to be cerebral hemorrhage and shock, resulting from repeated blows to the head and lacerations to the face. Bruising was noted on her scalp, consistent with blows, though her skull was not fractured. The anal canal was dilated, suggesting possible sexual assault. The body had been thoroughly cleaned with gasoline, which also served to wipe away any fingerprints. The repeated emphasis on surgical precision in the bisection and the deliberate posing of the body suggests a perpetrator who was not merely committing murder, but engaging in a highly intentional, almost ritualistic act. The Glasgow smile and the removal-rearrangement of internal organs point to a desire to shock and leave a distinct signature. The theory linking the body's staging to surrealist art by Man Ray provides a compelling interpretation. The extreme mutilation might have been a perverse artistic expression or a form of twisted communication, aiming for maximum public impact and notoriety rather than simple concealment. This transforms the crime from a mere act of violence into a complex psychological puzzle, suggesting a killer who derived satisfaction from public display and control. Upon discovery, police quickly arrived, but the crime scene was immediately swarmed by reporters before it could be properly cordoned off, complicating initial evidence collection. Due to the extensive disfigurement of the body, authorities recognized that sharing photos with the public for identification would be impossible. The FBI was promptly requested to assist in identification. Using SoundPhoto, a primitive fax machine, blurred fingerprints were sent from Los Angeles to the FBI's Washington, D.C. headquarters. Elizabeth Short was identified within a remarkably swift 56 minutes. Her fingerprints were on file from 2 previous instances: a job application as a clerk at the Army's Camp Cook in 1943, and an arrest by Santa Barbara police for underage drinking 7 months later. The FBI also possessed her mugshot and provided it to the press. An autopsy was performed on Short's body on January 16, 1947, and the LAPD issued a bulletin seeking further information about the victim. The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, launched an extensive investigation into Elizabeth Short's murder, quickly mobilizing significant resources. A total of 750 investigators from the LAPD and other departments worked on the case during its initial stages, including 400 sheriff's deputies and 250 California State Patrol officers. Various locations were searched for potential evidence, including storm drains throughout Los Angeles, abandoned structures, and sites along the Los Angeles River, though these efforts did not yield further evidence. The FBI provided crucial support, assisting with records checks on potential suspects and conducting interviews across the nation. Early suspicions arose that the murderer possessed skills in dissection due to the precise and clean cuts on Short's body. This led investigators to check out a group of students at the University of Southern California Medical School, located near the body's discovery site, by serving a warrant for a list of students in mid-February 1947. However, background checks yielded no results. The LAPD interviewed over 150 men as potential suspects. Robert Manley, one of the last people to see Short alive, was investigated but cleared after passing multiple polygraph examinations. Mark Hansen, a wealthy nightclub and theater owner whose address book was found in a packet sent by the killer, was also a suspect but was eventually cleared. The investigation was significantly hampered by hoaxes and taunting communications. After Los Angeles City Councilman Lloyd G. Davis posted a $10,000 reward for information leading to the killer, numerous individuals came forward with confessions. However, most of these were dismissed as false, with some confessors even charged with obstruction of justice. The notoriety of the murder has since led to over 500 people confessing to the crime over the years, including some who were not even born at the time of her death, diverting valuable police resources. Taunting letters, seemingly from the killer, further complicated the investigation. On January 21, a person claiming to be Short's killer called James Richardson, the editor of the Examiner, congratulating him on the newspaper's coverage and stating a plan to turn himself in after further police pursuit. The caller also told Richardson to expect some souvenirs of Bait Short in the mail. 3 days later, a suspicious manila envelope addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers was discovered. It contained words cut and pasted from newspaper clippings and a message reading, "Here is Dahlia's belongings, letter to follow." The envelope contained Short's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, names on paper, and an address book with Mark Hansen's name. Crucially, the packet had been carefully cleaned with gasoline, similar to Short's body, leading police to suspect it was sent directly by her killer. Partial fingerprints were lifted, but were compromised in transit to the FBI. On January 26, another handwritten letter was received by the Examiner stating, "Here it is. Turning in Wed Jan. 29:10 a.m. Had my fun at police. Black Dahlia Avenger." It named a location, but the alleged killer did not appear. Instead, at 1 p.m. On January 29, the examiner offices received another cut-and-pasted letter. Have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified. The Herald Express also received several letters from the purported killer, made with cut-and-pasted clippings, including one that read, "I will give up on Dahlia killing if I get 10 years. Don't try to find me." The graphic nature of the murder and the subsequent taunting letters created an unprecedented media circus around the case. Both local and national publications heavily covered the story, often reprinting sensationalistic and false reports, such as claims that Short had been tortured for hours. This information was false, yet police allowed these reports to circulate to conceal the true cause of death, cerebral hemorrhage, from the public, a strategic move to potentially mislead the killer or protect sensitive investigative details. The nickname Black Dahlia quickly emerged and became synonymous with the case. This moniker was reportedly inspired by the 1946 film The Blue Dahlia and influenced by Short's rumored penchant for black clothing and dark hair. It was common for newspapers at the time to assign nicknames to lurid murder cases, especially those involving women. The Los Angeles Times initially dubbed it the werewolf murder due to the brutality, but quickly pivoted to Black Dahlia once her nickname became known. The day after Short was found dead, the Examiner sold the most copies it had since World War II ended, underscoring the immediate public fascination. The media's sensationalism had both benefits and harms for the investigation. While the intense public interest might have kept the case in the public eye and spurred some individuals to offer information, it also introduced significant complications. Reporters from William Randolph Hearst's Los Angeles Examiner engaged in deceptive practices, contacting Short's mother, Phoebe Short, under the false pretense that her daughter had won a beauty contest to extract personal information, only then revealing the gruesome truth. The Examiner even offered to pay Phoebe's airfare to Los Angeles, a tactic to keep her away from police and other reporters, thus protecting their scoop. Further reports about Short's personal life were publicized, including details about her alleged declining of Mark Hansen's sexual advances, and a stripper acquaintance's claim that Short liked to get guys worked up over her, but she'd leave them hanging dry. This led some reporters and detectives to speculate about Short's sexual orientation, questioning employees and patrons of gay bars, though this claim remained unsubstantiated. Lead investigator Sergeant Finis Brown directly blamed the press for compromising the investigation through journalists' probing of details and unverified reporting. The proliferation of false confessions and unsubstantiated stories about Short, including claims of prostitution, frigidity, and pregnancy, further distorted the facts and diverted police resources. Additionally, numerous people, none of whom knew Short, claimed to have seen her during her missing week. But these alleged sightings were ruled out as individuals were often mistaking other women for Short. In 1947, forensic science was in its nascent stages, significantly limiting the capabilities of investigators compared to today's advanced techniques. Many of the tools taken for granted now, such as DNA analysis, were entirely unavailable. Investigators primarily relied on more traditional methods like fingerprint analysis, footprint comparisons, and eyewitness testimony, which often proved unreliable or misleading. The FBI, for instance, used sound photo, a primitive fax machine, to transmit blurred fingerprints for identification, a process that, while effective for identification, highlights the technological constraints of the era. Despite these limitations, investigators were able to gather some evidence. The body itself provided crucial information. The precise bisection and extensive mutilation suggested a killer with medical knowledge or surgical skill. Ligature marks indicated Short had been restrained, and evidence of torture, including cigarette burns and lacerations, pointed to a perpetrator who derived satisfaction from the victim's suffering. The absence of blood at the scene and the cleaning of the body with gasoline indicated an off-site killing and meticulous effort to remove forensic traces. While items like a pair of shoes, a handbag, and a piece of fabric were found near the crime scene and later linked to a suspect, the evidence was insufficient for a conviction. The fingerprints lifted from the taunting letters sent to the press were compromised in transit to the FBI, preventing a match. The Black Dahlia case, though unsolved, played a significant role in highlighting the need for more sophisticated forensic tools and meticulous crime scene analysis, contributing to the advancement of investigative techniques. Today, modern forensic science offers capabilities that could potentially crack such a cold case. Advances in DNA technologies have substantially increased the successful analysis of aged, degraded, or limited biological evidence, making samples once thought unsuitable now capable of yielding DNA profiles. Forensic genetic genealogy, a cutting-edge method, compares crime scene DNA against large genealogy databases, allowing investigators to build family trees and identify suspects through distant relatives. This technique has successfully solved numerous cold cases, including the Golden State Killer, by providing a new avenue when traditional government databases yield no direct match. Trace evidence analysis has also evolved, allowing for the detection and comparison of minute transfers of materials like fibers, hair, glass, and soil, which might have been overlooked or unanalyzable in 1947. However, applying modern forensics to historical cases like the Black Dahlia murder faces significant challenges, particularly concerning the chain of custody. The chain of custody is the documented trail of evidence, essential for proving its authenticity and integrity in court. In 1947, strict protocols for evidence handling and documentation were not as rigorously established or consistently followed as they are today. The initial swarming of the crime scene by reporters, for instance, could have compromised evidence integrity. Any break in the chain of custody or inconsistencies in its documentation can render evidence inadmissible or reduce its weight in court. For a case as old as the Black Dahlia, the likelihood of an unbroken, perfectly documented chain of custody for all original evidence is extremely low, posing a substantial hurdle for any re-examination relying on physical evidence. Over the decades, numerous individuals have been proposed as the unidentified killer of Elizabeth Short, leading to a proliferation of theories, many of which lack persuasive evidence. While some theories are not taken seriously by experts, others have garnered significant attention and remain subjects of intense debate. One of the most prominent suspects is Dr. George Hodel, a Los Angeles physician specializing in sexually transmitted diseases. His son, retired lab detective Steve Hodel, has meticulously traced clues back to his father, publishing a best-selling book in 2003 detailing his findings. Supporting evidence includes a 6-week wiretap of George Hodel's home in early 1950, where he was allegedly recorded making incriminating statements like, Sapassin, I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. Audio recordings from the wiretap also reportedly included questionable conversations and the screams of a woman being beaten, believed to be from the basement of his Soden House residence. Steve Hodel posits that his father, a highly skilled surgeon, used Short's body as a canvas, with his scalpel as the paint brush, suggesting an artistic staging of the crime that strikingly resembles surrealist artwork by Man Ray, a close Hodel family friend. Further allegations include Short being a patient at Hodel's clinic, the suspicious drug overdose death of his secretary, Ruth Spaulding, who could have connected him to Short, and receipts for concrete found near Short's body matching purchases made by Hodel. Handwriting analysis on taunting notes sent to police also showed similarities to George Hodel's distinctive writing. Steve Hodel also links his father to other similar murders, including that of Jean French and Suzanne Dignan, noting similarities in sadistic markings and body bisection. Despite this compelling circumstantial evidence, Lapped Detective Mitzi Roberts has stated there is no physical evidence to definitively prove the theory, and the case remains officially open. Norman Chandler, the publisher of the Los Angeles Times, was named as a suspect in Donald Wolf's 2005 book, The Black Dahlia Files. Wolf's theory suggests a complex scenario involving multiple perpetrators, claiming Chandler impregnated Short while she was working as a call girl, leading to her murder by gangster Bugsy Siegel. However, this theory is considered highly speculative and lacks substantial corroborating evidence. George Knowlton became a suspect in the early 1990s when his daughter, Janice Knowlton, claimed to have witnessed her father murdering Elizabeth Short. Her claims, detailed in her 1995 book Daddy Was the Black Dahlia Killer, were based on recovered memories that surfaced during therapy. She alleged her father murdered Short in their garage, bisected her in the sink, and forced her, then 10 years old, to help dispose of the body. Janice Knowlton also claimed Short was involved in sex work and a child trafficking ring. However, law enforcement found no evidence to support her claims after excavating her childhood home, and Lapped Detective John P. Center. John stated her claims were not consistent with the facts of the case. Janice Knowlton died in 2004 from a prescription drug overdose, ruled a suicide. Jack Anderson Wilson, a.k.a. Arnold Smith, a lifelong petty criminal, was named as a suspect by author John Gilmore after Wilson's death, based on an alleged acquaintance with Short. However, Gilmore had made different claims prior to Wilson's death, casting doubt on the consistency of this accusation. Patrick S. O'Reilly, an orthopedic surgeon, was included in a lapped suspect list in 1951. His association with Short's acquaintances, a history of assaulting his secretary, and a self-performed surgical removal of part of his breast, similar to the crime's mutilations, made him a person of interest. He was also a skilled surgeon with a prominent jaw scar. However, it was later discovered that O'Reilly had lied about his identity and had a history of feeding false stories to newspapers, undermining his credibility. Bugsy Siegel, the Los Angeles mobster, was also allegedly a suspect. Don Wolf's book, The Black Dahlia Files, claims Siegel was the actual murderer, linking him to the alleged call girl scenario with Norman Chandler. However, the reason for his suspicion is unclear, as Siegel was reportedly more focused on his Flamingo Hotel and Casino at the time, and was known as a ladies' man rather than a ladies' killer. It has been surmised that if he had any involvement, he would have sent a henchman. The multitude of suspects and theories, often fueled by sensational media and circumstantial evidence, underscores the enduring difficulty of solving a case with limited forensic capabilities at the time and the passage of decades. The unsolved nature of the Black Dahlia case has ensured its continued re-examination over the decades, fueled by public fascination, new investigative techniques, and the release of archival materials. The case's enduring presence in popular culture has spurred numerous books, documentaries, and fictionalized accounts, which in turn often reignite public interest and prompt fresh scrutiny of old evidence. One significant catalyst for renewed interest was James Ellroy's 1987 noir novel, The Black Dahlia, which fictionalized the investigation and helped kick off a renaissance of public interest. This literary success was followed by a 2006 film adaptation, further embedding the story in the public consciousness. More recently, the 2019 miniseries I Am the Night circled back to the theory involving Dr. George Hodel, focusing on the long-held suspicion that he killed Short at the famed John Soden house. These fictional and dramatized accounts, while not always strictly factual, serve to keep the historical case alive and encourage new generations to delve into its mysteries. Official re-examinations and archival releases have also contributed to ongoing discussions. The FBI, for instance, has released some of its files related to the Black Dahlia case, including news clippings, Short's birth and death certificates, and results of records checks on potential subjects. These releases provide researchers and amateur sleuths with direct access to historical documents, allowing for independent analysis and the development of new theories. The meticulous investigation by retired lap detective Steve Hodel, who accused his own father, Dr. George Hodel, of the murder, is a prime example of a modern re-examination. His work, detailed in his 2003 book, brought to light previously buried cold case files, including wiretap transcripts from his father's home that contained potentially incriminating statements. His search of the Soden House property in 2012 even yielded soil samples that tested positive for decomposed human remains, and a cement sack found near Short's body matched the type bought for contracting work at the house. A newly discovered 3-page handwritten letter from 1949, penned by a former lapped informant, also names G.H. George Hodel as the killer, further fueling this theory. Despite these re-examinations and the emergence of new information, the Black Dahlia case officially remains unsolved. No one has ever been formally charged or convicted in connection with Elizabeth Short's murder. The challenges faced by investigators in the 1940s, particularly the limited forensic capabilities and the difficulties in maintaining a robust chain of custody for evidence, continue to complicate modern attempts to definitively solve the case. While modern forensic techniques like advanced DNA analysis and genetic genealogy offer unprecedented opportunities for cold cases, the age and condition of the Black Dahlia evidence, coupled with historical chain of custody issues, present significant hurdles to applying these methods effectively. The murder of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, has transcended its origins as a brutal crime to become a deeply embedded part of American cultural consciousness and Lowe's Angels lore. It is frequently cited as one of the most famous unsolved murders in U.S. history and one of the oldest cold cases in Lowe's Angels County, widely recognized as one of the first major crimes in post-war America to capture national attention. The case's lasting impact stems from several factors. Its gruesome nature, including the mutilation and dissection of Short's corpse, shocked the public and continues to evoke a chilling fascination. The media's immediate and sensationalized coverage, which dubbed Short the Black Dahlia and portrayed her as a beautiful aspiring actress whose Hollywood dreams ended in horrible suffering, created a gripping and cautionary tale for young women in the post-war era. This narrative tapped into the anxieties of a rapidly changing society, where the allure of Hollywood often masked underlying dangers and vulnerabilities. The unresolved mystery itself has sustained public interest, allowing for a variety of theories and interpretations to emerge and persist. The Black Dahlia murder has profoundly influenced literature and film, becoming a recurring motif in true crime narratives, mystery novels, and film noir. James Ellroy's novel The Black Dahlia, 1987, is perhaps the most famous fictional account, so vividly rendered that many readers reportedly mistook it for true crime. Other works, such as John Gregory Dunn's True Confessions, 1977, and various documentaries and miniseries, have explored the case, contributing to its enduring mythos. The case has also inspired a cult following, with online forums, podcasts, and even apparel lines dedicated to its enigma, reflecting a broader cultural obsession with unsolved crimes and the macabre. Academically, the Black Dahlia case is studied within the context of dark tourism, where sites of death and atrocity become objects of touristic interest. It is seen as a prime example of how narratives of sexual danger and violence, particularly against women, can become embedded in popular culture and tourism, often borrowing from the conventions of film noir. The case's particular embeddedness in cinematic cultures offers a unique point of entry into investigating the construction, attraction, and consumption of entertainment-based dark tourism focused on the corpses of violently murdered women. This cultural phenomenon, while maintaining public awareness of the crime, also raises ethical questions about the commodification of tragedy and the potential for obscuring the victim's humanity beneath a sensationalized legend. The Black Dahlia case continues to resonate in popular culture, reflecting both the intrigue and tragedy surrounding Short's life and death, and serving as a haunting emblem of enduring mystery. The unsolved murder of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, remains one of the most compelling and disturbing cold cases in American history, deeply intertwined with the post-war landscape of Los Angeles. The meticulous and brutal nature of the crime, particularly the surgical precision of the dissection and the deliberate posing of the body, suggests a perpetrator with a high degree of organization, potential medical knowledge, and a profound desire to make a shocking public statement. The killer's actions, such as cleaning the body with gasoline and sending taunting letters and personal effects to the press, indicate a calculated effort to control the narrative and evade detection, effectively removing crucial forensic evidence from the crime scene. Elizabeth Short's own life, marked by a transient existence, financial precarity, and a complex duality of charm and vulnerability, reflects the precarious reality faced by many aspiring individuals drawn to Hollywood's glittering promise. Her missing week before the discovery of her body stands as a critical investigative blind spot, likely representing a period of captivity and torture at the hands of her killer, whose forethought in erasing traces speaks to a sophisticated and disturbed mind. The media's immediate and intense sensationalism, while generating widespread public interest, simultaneously hampered the investigation through false reports, diverted resources to countless false confessions, and distorted public perception of Short's life. This media circus, however, also cemented the Black Dahlia as an enduring cultural icon, transforming a horrific crime into a persistent enigma that continues to inspire countless fictional and non-fictional works. Despite numerous re-examinations and the emergence of compelling theories, particularly those surrounding Dr. George Hodel, the case remains officially unsolved. The limitations of 1940s forensic science and the inherent challenges in preserving a pristine chain of custody for evidence from such an old case continue to present formidable obstacles to definitive resolution, even with modern advancements in DNA analysis and genetic genealogy. The Black Dahlia case stands as a stark reminder of the limitations of historical investigations and the enduring power of an unsolved mystery to capture the human imagination, serving as a haunting testament to a brutal act committed in a city of dreams.